I call this meeting to order. This is the annual public hearing of the 2019-20 World's Best Workforce Plan. Today is Monday, October 26, 2020, and the time is 6:15 p.m. Following the presentation of the World's Best Workforce Plan and the goals and strategies for the upcoming school year by Hope Langston, the district's Director of Instructional Services, there will be an opportunity for members of the community to provide feedback. As a reminder to board members, our opportunity to ask questions and provide comments will take place during the board's regular school board meeting following this public hearing. So welcome, Hope. Is this on?
Got to turn it on.
On the top, Hope.
Push the top.
Very top button,
There.
slide it.
There
There.
you go. There we go. We're in business. Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here again for this year's World's Best Workforce Report. I will preface this by saying we're waiting for two things to come in that I was hoping would be in today. One would be the actual World's Best Workforce template from MDE for 2020, and that has not yet been published. And then the second thing would be our ACT score report for the class of 2020, and that has also been delayed. So we are moving forward with a report that is missing some data points, but we have learned nonetheless about some metrics that we include, so we're ready to go. So all of our work that we do is grounded in advancing this vision and mission, and those statements are right there. And the goals that we set and the strategies that we implement really are put in place to support what we do in the Northfield Public Schools. So one of the things that we have been required to report on, again, that would be the template that is for years preceding this one. I don't know if we're going to report on this year, but I'm going to include it anyways because we're all in the same boat in terms of districts trying to get World's Best Workforce done before the due date of December 15th without a report template available. But one of the things that we have reported on is qualified teaching staff, and that is a metric that's used to make sure that every student in Minnesota has access to high quality teachers. So as you can see in Northfield, we have very high percentages of our educators who both have experience, are fully licensed, and even a high percentage that have advanced degrees. And that is across all of our schools. So we know that, in fact, our students do have access to high quality teachers, and we are fortunate to be in that situation. So that data, again, is from fall of last year. I don't anticipate many changes, but MDE has not yet updated for fall of 2020. All right, before we begin, I want to just say, publicly thank the members of the Northfield Forward Committee who, Tom is on that committee, and he's going to sit through 47 slides again, lucky guy. But it was an incredible meeting last week, giving feedback about the World's Best Workforce Report. And this committee is really a broad scope of people, including students, community members, staff members, administrators. So it's really a nice cross-section of people. And I'm just going to warn you right now, while you have an acronym definition in every single slide that has an acronym, because that continues to be feedback that we get. We're acronym heavy, and people were really curious about what the acronyms mean. And I think that's just a practice I'm going to start. We just define every acronym on the slides that we include in our presentation. So goal 1. As you recall, for World's Best Workforce, we have goals that cross the continuum from kindergarten to graduation. And so goal 1, all children are ready for school, so it's our kindergarten readiness goal. So this year, our goal was 65% of our incoming kindergarten students will meet the grade level benchmark on the primary MAP test. And little did we know last fall what we were going to be looking at for the school year. So that goal was put into place, and the next slide is our actual results. So we crushed it. 78% of our kindergartners were ready in reading, and another 76% in math. Now, I do want to point out that this year's MAP testing, so this is current year for our kindergartners, do not include our Portage kindergartners. So there's about, as of today, 27 kindergartners in the Portage program. We did look at including our Portage kids in MAP testing, and in fact, from NWA made a switch last year from their spring stance of MAP testing is not to be done remotely to this year saying, okay, we have these criteria set up and you can test remotely. But when we started to really look at it, I talked to several districts up in the cities who were trying it, and we felt like the tech requirements, the adults in the testing space requirement were just more than we could manage for our Portage kids. And then we looked at the demographics of our Portage kids versus the demographics of our district, and they are quite similar. So we knew that this year we're just going to test our in-person kids. We also were impacted by the number of kids who were absent over the 3 weeks of the testing window. It was actually about 2.5 weeks because of flu-like symptoms or quarantine, and so really we did the best we could, and we ended up with about 1,200 students completing the testing, and that included 174 of these kindergartners. 23% of this population in testing this fall is FRP. We know that's probably artificially low because we know that our families are not have not completed their FRP application process as they would in a school year where meals weren't being offered for free right now. So the FRP rate for this population, 23%, and about 13% Hispanic students. So we are really pleased with these results, and we'll talk about strategies that we think have contributed to this. But again, super strong alignment between, and a growing alignment between our pre-K schools in town and our kindergarten team. So there you see the trends. And you know, I always sit there and I think, was 2018 an outlier? And I wish I could tell you. But we did not MAP test everybody prior to that in kindergarten. So, you know, the only way we're going to know that is to continue on with our fall testing. But as you can see, there are nice increases across the board. We did even have some achievement gap reduction. So our kindergartners, by and large, are showing up with the skills they need to start school. And that's a really great situation to be in. Now, one of the other things that we did this fall, which did include our Portage students, was the DIBEL screener. And the DIBEL screener is the dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills, and this can be done virtually and in person, but it measures very discrete skills. So for instance, in kindergarten, there's 2 things that are being measured on. First, sound fluency, which is the ability to reproduce the sound that they hear, the first sound they hear in a word. And then letter naming fluency, which is how many letters they can name in a minute. And so you can see actually we're fairly close to the MAP test if you add the at or above benchmark and the below benchmark kids. One of the things that's interesting is that MDE, you know, which has a list of dyslexia screeners that they approve, does include DIBELS, used to include MAP, no longer includes MAP. And one of the reasons is because MAP cannot really measure these discrete skills, which are predictors of reading challenge MAP does not do that. And so we actually need both of these together, but I just think we would be remiss in leaving this piece out because it tells us a little bit, a different story about our incoming Ks. And I think the two together really provide us with a good picture of what our kindergarten class looks like right now. So what's next? We have the preschool navigators still in place. They do an amazing job of going to meet with families and getting them hooked up not only with preschool, but also other services in our community. And so they have just been a tremendous asset. The Hegarty curriculum is something you're going to hear more about. And all of our kinder teachers are using that this year. You may remember that in the dyslexia presentation, I talked about MDE's experts calling that the universal inoculation, that if every kid could get the Hegarty curriculum, we would have far fewer kids going on to have reading difficulties. And basically it's about 12 to 15 minutes a day of very specific, sequential, and explicit instruction in foundational literacy skills like rhyming, segmenting sounds, blending sounds. And it's 35 weeks of instruction, and we believe that will have a tremendous impact on our students' foundational skill set. We also will continue the data sharing agreements with area preschools, and I really believe this is a contributor to our current results, because Erin Bailey and I, for 2 years, have gone to the preschools, shared the MAP results with them for their cohort, not student level data, but their cohort of kids, showed them what a MAP test looks like, what it's testing, talked about the skills that are being developed. And so I know we're not going to be able to do that this year, but I really think that that has been an integral piece of this work that we're doing to get kids ready for K. And then we will continue with MAP and DIBELS testing both in the fall, winter, and spring for our kindergartners. So because this is a rather unusual year, we're going to leave the goal. We actually increased it, so this is the one where we did up it to 75% of our kindergarten students will meet the grade level benchmark next fall. So we've increased our goal by 10%. And we think that's something that if we can get to that point, boy, our intervention systems can work well in kindergarten, and we really think that that will allow our system to function, most efficiently. So that's kindergarten readiness, and we are moving on to goal 2. All third graders can read at grade level. So our goal was 70% of third graders. We were super excited about this. We had Move 5 going last year. We had all the things in place, our CCC curriculum. We were just moving along, and then the pandemic hit. So MCA testing was canceled. You're going to see this same slide a few times tonight. And so we obviously did not have that metric for last year. I want to just, again, leave you with a snapshot of where we were and where we hope to return to, because we had really been on a significant upward trend in our third grade reading scores, and that's due to the efforts of really everybody across the district really focusing on literacy instruction. So we, this year, will continue to shore up and implement the CCC instruction. We were at a point last year where teachers were ready to start discussing, things that could be tweaked in the curriculum and things where they could, add some things that they felt were missing in terms of alignment to state standards. That, of course, has sort of taken a back seat this year to really figuring out what it is they're going to be able to cover in their instruction during this year, where we're, probably going to be changing learning models and different protocols are causing a loss of instructional minutes, but that CCC instruction is crucial and really important this year, where we have kids in Portage who may come back to us in the semester. We have kids leaving in person to join us in Portage, and it's really pretty critical that we we pace alike across the in-person and Portage models, and that CCC instruction has been instrumental in that. Because if you can just imagine, if we went back, 4 years where everybody's kind of doing their thing, it would have been much harder to have some consistency across those two populations of kids. But this CCC is the implementation that a curriculum has allowed us to do that. We also are using SIPS this year, which is the intervention program of CCC. One huge switch from the publisher themselves is the fact that they recommended that SIPS be used instead of set instruction, the small group instruction in first grade and second grade, and that every student across the district be given the SIPS placement test. Now, if you remember the first year we implemented CCC, we did that, right? We actually did a Ready, Set, Go SIPS placement test on every kid K-5. It's kind of fun to see that come full circle, and that is their recommendation for the whole country for people using the CCC curriculum. We did not do that. I worked with MDE this summer. We went with Dibbles, and then kids who tested well below grade level were given the SIPS placement test. So we use that as our second layer of assessment. But we believe that teachers using that SIPS program and interventionists using that program will be able to accelerate the growth of students. Their studies indicate those kids get about 1.5 years growth using SIPS versus a year, and that's awesome. Minnesota Reading Corps, we have the most tutors this year that we've ever had. That is phenomenal. And they also have a virtual tutoring project where families can sign up online. So that's an exciting development because we know that those interventions are crucial for developing our struggling readers. So we are going to leave that goal the same for 2021. Right now, MDE is indicating all systems go on MCA testing. We'll see how that goes. And we could think about changing metrics. I just don't think that is a wise choice right now, given what everybody's dealing with just in instruction and assessment at the classroom level. So we're just going to hang tight with this one right now. Goal 3. All racial and achievement gaps between students are closed. And you may recall we've attempted a few different goals with this achievement gap. And interestingly enough, the reviewers for World's Best Workforce, you get like a little report card. Last year they didn't have reviewers, which is why we didn't get a report card, but we have actually been dinged on this goal. And so we moved to attendance because we know that if we're going to close that achievement gap, the first step is getting kids to school. And if you recall that MDE's North Star goal is to have 95% consistent attendance, meaning kids miss no more than 10% of their enrolled school days, with no demographic group below 90. This is a pretty lofty goal. But we thought, hey, let's do it because we know this is an area we could use some improvements in. So yeah, that's what I just said, so we're good. And so here are our two groups, and these are the trends over 5 years. And these are FRP. The maroon would be Northfield's consistent attendance rate, and the gold would be the state. These are like graduation rates in that they are a year delayed because they need that time to clean up the data. But as you can see, we're not close to where we want to be. We have some exciting things in place to improve these rates, but for sure room for improvement here in attendance rates for both of these student groups. So I'm excited to tell you about Family Engagement Navigators, and again, those are funded through HCI, but we have two great people, Heidi Ramirez and Jen Barrientos, who work with our families who are experiencing barriers to attending school. And they are already hard at work in our district. Heidi is based out of Greenville, and she supports Greenville, but also she helps out wherever she is asked to or sees a need. And Jen is focused primarily on the middle school, but again, will support Bridgewater and Sibley as needed. But they have been just already super busy helping us work with families, both in the Portage and in-person models. We also are super excited about a district MTSS process, and this really comes out of a learning in distance learning last year, in that we realized that we had a system set up where individual buildings were trying to support individual students who were having attendance needs, and it became very clear in distance learning that it wasn't a student issue as much as it was a family issue. And so instead of having someone at the middle school chasing one student and someone at Greenville chasing another student, we realized, like, wow, if we could come together and put all that information together, we could have one person helping that family. And so shout out to Carrie Duba and James Clinton, who have really been instrumental in building this. But we now have a dashboard, and we have all schools reporting using the same process. And then there's a point person assigned, and teachers get feedback about what's happening with that student. So we believe this is going to make a big difference in how we support families as a family unit across the district. There are 2 more action steps. Promise Fellows, we again are fortunate to have a number of Promise Fellows this year. We're going to have 2 supporting Portage, I just found out today, which is fantastic. And then the other piece, and it's really important, is this equity PLC work. So we have a PLC schedule that is consistent across the months of the school year, and the 3rd Wednesday of the month is our equity PLC. Dr. Hillman has led the last 2, and it's just a chance for PLC teams to come together, read an article, watch a video, whatever the activity is, and then discuss with their team questions and reflections about what they have just seen or read. And so we feel like this focus of once a month work is just helping to continue the anti-racism work that was started last year, and that we really want to make sure that that stays at the forefront of what our staff is doing this year. And so again, that can help us reach all of our families and help everybody be more engaged in their schooling. So again, we are going to leave that achievement gap goal with what it was. I can't tell you what the attendance is going to look like for this year as of in terms of the pandemic year. I don't know when we're going to actually get it. But clearly everybody was struggling with attendance during distance learning, and how do you do it efficiently, and that's really all districts across the state. So it'll be interesting to see what MDE actually reports this year and how we respond to that. Goal 4, all students are ready for career in college. We had 2 goals, and that was 8th grade MCAs as a metric, and then the percentage of our students who are meeting the college readiness benchmark in all 4 subject areas. Again, no MCA data. That's where we were, and we had been seeing some nice increases. That was reading. That was math, where we had 2 demographic groups that had an off year, but really we were pretty pleased with our results. This again is old data, because this is the class of 2019 that you're actually looking at, and that's going to get updated as soon as we get that report. Same with the next slide. So there's a couple of exciting things happening this year in terms of career and college readiness. The AVID implementation at the middle school is happening. There was a whole slew of teachers and staff members who did summer training with AVID, and this AVID, I explained that, that acronym, Advancement via Individual Determination. It's really about making sure that all kids have the opportunity to pursue rigorous coursework, and We know that that's something that if we're going to increase our AP representation, we need to start before high school. Like, kids need to be ready if that's the path they choose. So they need rigorous coursework prior to entering high school. AVID allows that and helps students build the skills they need to be successful in that coursework. We have expansion of college in the schools at Northfield High School. Odyssey-ware, which we are using for Portage, we continue to use in credit recovery at the high school and the ALC. We have, through the A&I grants, some Jeannie Hanslick and an EA who help students as they're taking that coursework. We had begun looking at ACT prep because our exiting senior surveys continue to indicate that kids want this. If they look back on their high school career, they're saying, well, I wish I would have studied for the ACT a little bit more. And so we know that they're looking for that. Ellen Muha had done some surveys in her class. The kids also indicated that. So we were looking at how to do that before the pandemic hit. And then also the use of Naviance because, again, we pay for that service. There are ACT practice tests in there. We just need to make sure that kids, A, know they're in there, and B, have access to them. So those goals will remain the same for the next year. And then the last goal is all students graduate from high school. We did have data for this one. We wanted a 4-year graduation of 95% for the class of 2019. We hit that. If you round up to the whole number, Northfield High School, 99%, which is pretty amazing, actually. So we're super proud of that. There you see the trends over time. And if you recall, this was a question at Northfield Forward, what happened in 2017? And that was a sort of the perfect storm of, we happened to have quite a few special education students who were continuing, which is a good thing, but it actually counts against your 4-year graduation rate. And we had some record-keeping issues, which we have since cleaned up. So that was that blip in 2017. And so we're pleased with the way this trend line is going, and that's for the district. And there's Northfield High School. And then also in 2017, you had the ALC with an abnormally low graduation rate, which affected our district rate and got them placed on the list for schools in need of support. And so one of the things that we have to do for the 3 years that they are on this this list is assure publicly that we are doing these 4 bulleted items, which is continued communication with their stakeholders. We annually review that comprehensive needs assessment. We are following the strategies that we listed in the school improvement plan that was written 2 years ago now, and that we monitor the results and action steps every year. So one of the great things to come out of this identification process is the access to the regional centers for excellence. And for instance, this year we have an advocate working with us to rewrite our EL plan for the district, which needs to be updated. And we are meeting every Wednesday with her with a team of people to look at our EL programming and develop a plan. So as much as nobody really wants to be identified as a school in need of improvement, there are some good things that have come out of that. So again, these are just the assurances that we need to make as a district as part of this process. So there you see, again, nice recovery from the ALC. We have been told by the advocate that they are seriously reconsidering identifying ALCs as part of this process. Clearly, you know, an ALC with a graduation rate of less than 67% is anybody who graduates from an ALC, it's a win. And so you can see that our ALC has had a nice turnaround. It's a 3-year identification process and it's a rolling average. So We will continue to be on there until A, they change the legislation surrounding that, or B, we hit that 67% mark in a 3-year average. So what's next for our graduation rate? The Peer Helper Program has been incredibly successful. It continued to be successful during the distance learning model. So that will stay in place, and they are actually supporting our Portage students this year as well. We continue to always refine and review our record keeping for graduation cohorts. It continues to be a pretty archaic system in terms of MDE, and I know they're working on changing that, but you know, it would be nice to know who they think is in our cohort, and we don't always know that until we get the final report. And we continue to use Odysseyware. The other piece that I think is important that I didn't list, and that is my error, is, you know, for the first time this year, we did offer a choice on state testing day in college, in the college testing selection, and that was you could choose the ASVAB, which is the military entrance exam. You could choose the Accuplacer, so if you think you want to go to a community college, that might be a better choice for you, or you could choose the ACT. And postcards went out to families, and we defaulted to ACT, so if their postcard wasn't returned, the student was signed up for the ACT. But we did see students who chose to take a different college entrance test, and we want to continue again with offering that choice, because we feel like that gives families and students a little more control over the path that they're selecting for themselves. And so we are signed up and ready to go for March 2nd. We'll see what happens between now and then, but all systems are go for right now. So we are going to just continue with the goal of 95, at least 95%. Once you start bumping up into the 98, 99% land, we know, just depending on even what the population of a given cohort is, can have a tremendous impact on this rate. For instance, if there happens to be a larger number of SPED students continuing on, that can impact this. So we feel like 95% is a great place for us to be. So there's our table. I actually don't think we've ever had 2 Mets before, so let's just all enjoy that for a moment. We have 2 NAs. The attendance, we know we need to address that, and then we're waiting on our ACT results. So something new this year is our achievement and integration. It's not new in that we had our baseline last year, and we had 3 goals that we need to report on every year, and they are very particular about the goals that you set. So we had actually submitted some, and they sent them back. So this is where we landed. They approved this, but basically we're looking at college-ready benchmark scores with that choice in place, so ACT and Accuplacer. Goal 2 is the proficiency gap, and goal 3 is student awareness about their school data and district data. So goal 1, we did not meet, and right now we know that there's an asterisk next to 21 because that won't be the official report, right? So what we will use is the official ACT, and it's not an official Accuplacer report, but we'd use the highest Accuplacer score that a student got between their junior and senior year, just like ACT does. So, so we expect that those numbers will improve, but again, we set a pretty high goal of getting to 60% by 2022. So we have some work to do in the midst of this pandemic, but we really feel like giving kids a choice is going to help us move along in meeting this goal, but we have some work to do. Yep, so we had no testing. And then this was actually, I look back when I'm looking at the pictures and I'm like, holy cow, if you would have told me in December what we would have been facing in March. We had this great data summit, right? About 100 kids came from the districts you see listed there. It was an incredible day. A team of kids from Northfield sort of organized and planned this whole event. We got some great press and people coming down to watch this. 100% of the kids who responded to the survey said that they increased their knowledge about their district data. It's just amazing. So really good results. We're ready to start planning for the April 2nd summit, and then the pandemic hit. So this was an incredible experience. The next slide just shows you a couple pictures. I mean, these kids branded this data summit. It was just an incredible experience. And so I'm hoping that, once we can return to somewhat normal, whatever that new normal will be, that we can continue this work, because there was real energy around the kids and their work and the districts working together. And so that seems like a great place to end the World's Best Workforce Report for 2020.
Excellent. Thank you, Hope. So I will ask at this point if there are any community members who are wishing to comment on the World's Best Workforce Report. Okay, we also had the opportunity for community members to submit questions or comments via email. So seeing no one come forward, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Jeff. Is there a second? Second by Amy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.